I've been talking to global defence and security expert Olivier Gutta. He's a specialist on Islamist extremist groups, and he's been talking to me about that Paris-Brussels connection.
It looks like the plot had been prepared in Belgium, but controlled by a figure of European jihadism, Belgium of Moroccan extract, named Abu Omar, that has been featured in Islamic State main magazine. He is allegedly behind the Paris terror attacks, but the foiled attack on the train, the Thalys train, over the summer in August between Amsterdam and Paris, and over the foiled attacks against churches as well in Paris a few months back. All points out to Belgium, Brussels, and that specific area of Brussels, Molenbeek, which has been for a long time a hub of European jihadism. Just a few weeks back, the Islamic State has specifically called for their operatives in Europe to target not their homeland directly, but a neighboring Western European country. Because in that fashion, they would probably evade security services tracking them down and surveilling them. And that's exactly what happened. The French are now saying that the perpetrators of the attacks were not on the security radars, but on the security radars of the Belgians. And that's why I think, because when you see how Brussels also is an international city, that would have been very symbolical to attack with the European Parliament, the Commission, and also NATO, that would have made sense for them to stay in Brussels and attack targets in Brussels. But following the instructions that they were given, that's why they most likely travel to Paris and attack Paris, because they would be more difficult to monitor and track down.
What do you make of this Syrian passport that was found beside the body of one of the suicide bombers in the Stade de France? There are questions, aren't there, as to whether it's a genuine passport, whether it was planted deliberately by IS to make things more difficult for people seeking refuge in Europe?
Whatever the case may be, one cannot discount the fact that Islamic State is smart enough to use the flow of refugees to just pass one or two or three or four of their operatives. This has happened in the past time and time again, not in just these latest waves of refugees coming to Europe, but also in the mid-2000s when Al-Qaeda was able to have some of their members come in Europe through a refugee banner.
And there are warnings from intelligence services that there will be more attacks, that it could be Germany next, it could be London next, it could be France again. Nobody knows. But the risk of more attacks is real. And then you have to look at the fact that since the start of the month, IS have killed more than 500 people between the Russian plane bombings in Beirut, in Baghdad, and now Paris. How does Europe fight this threat?
First, people have to understand that mostly since September 2014, Islamic State is at war with the West and will stop at nothing to inflict major damage. Back in September 14, I had specifically said that the threat to our cities had been multiplied by 10. And that's what the security services have to face, is a humongous tsunami of potential jihadists that are already in our cities. MI5 head came up a few weeks back in an interview and said 3,000 potential jihadists were in the UK. The number in France are between 3,000 and 5,000. So you are correct. This is something that is unfortunately bound to happen on a much more regular scale until we get things right, which doesn't seem to happen.
Just on that, how do we get things right?
We have to understand that going military after Islamic State is one thing, but look at the numbers. The Americans say that in the past 15 months they killed between 8 and 10,000 Islamic State members in Iraq and Syria, but another 10,000 came in. So if we're playing the numbers game, we're going to lose because they can recruit as quickly as people are dying. So what we need to do is focus here in Europe to win the battle of ideas, to get a counter narrative against Islamic State propaganda and to go after radicals that are brainwashing our kids, Islamic preachers that are going around and spreading hatred. This has to be fought also by our intellect as much as by our military. And until we understand this, we're never going to win.
A very interesting point made there by global defence and security expert Olivier Gutta, who was talking to me a little earlier.